walking by, and one of them has a weapon.
It was the video that put WikiLeaks on the map, turned the tide of war in Iraq, and landed Private First Class Bradley Manning in military detention. But for Army veteran Ethan McCord, it was just another day on duty.
The helicopters, they were approximately about 1.5 miles away when they were zooming in on these guys. And from looking at it now, you can't see anything. I mean, that right there is obviously a camera dangling, if you were to really pay attention. That guy has an AK-47 right there.
Baghdad, Iraq. 2007, the 216th Battalion was out patrolling a volatile part of the city.
I was about 5 blocks away, 4 or 5 blocks away to the left of the screen. This was a battalion-wide mission.
And then the situation turned deadly.
Come on, fire!
We heard the Apaches firing.
Ethan and his infantry squad began running toward the scene to provide support. Again, the Apache helicopter opened fire.
Come on!
When he arrived on the scene, the Apache guns were quiet. The accused enemies were dead.
I just drove over a body. Yeah.
One guy's head, the top of his head was completely off, and his brains were on the ground, and the smell still haunts me to the day. I don't even know how to describe it.
When he approached the van, a noise Ethan wasn't expecting, a cry of a little girl.
I think she was 4 years old, and you could tell she had a wound to the stomach. And I remember her looking at me, and the blood around her eyes made her eyes so ghostly white.
Ethan grabbed the girl and ran into a nearby building. He then picked glass out of her eyes so she could blink and handed her off to a medic.
I went back outside and was told to take pictures, so I started taking pictures of the inside of the van.
And that's when he discovered the little boy.
And that's me.
What's in your arms?
That is a little boy who I originally thought was dead.
The children survived, but part of Ethan changed forever that day.
But I couldn't stop myself from crying. I couldn't stop myself from feeling the way that I was feeling.
When he did seek mental help, he says he was mocked by his commanders and threatened with expulsion from the military.
That's when I started drinking. Mental health had given me prescriptions, 13 prescriptions of Geodon, Depakote, Prozac. I mean, I was a zombie.
But things got worse.
I started daydreaming of killing my own children and everybody around me.
So Ethan took matters into his own hands.
I'd already begun drinking pretty heavily, and I downed all the pills, and I drank a 5th of Crown Royal, 10 o'clock in the morning. And my wife at the time found me.
That was the first time Ethan tried to take his own life. After that, he was dismissed from the Army.
I was kicked out with no disability, no benefits from the Army whatsoever.
He returned to Wichita, and then Ethan attempted suicide for a second time.
I actually wrote a poem right before I did it, before I put the gun in my mouth. And I don't know if I really want to talk about it. I know that I will never, ever, ever get better. I'll never get over this.
Well, one thing that has not changed is that those victims that you see in that video, the Collateral Murder video, still have not got any justice. I mean, in my mind, this is clearly a war crime. The shooting of the minivan especially, and the killing of the father of the 2 children that Ethan dragged out of the minivan and saved. I traveled to Baghdad. I was there just 2 days before the release of the Collateral Murder video, and I met these 2 children, Doa and Saeed. They were 8 and 12 years at the time. And their father, Matasher Tomal, his only crime was to be driving them to special tutoring and stopping when he came up on the scene to save Saeed Sma, the Reuters employee who was bleeding to death on the sidewalk. It was heartbreaking to meet them. They still have the scars of that incident. And of course, the psychological effects of being shot at and losing their father is terrible. They still have not got any justice. This event has not been investigated properly as a war crime, as it should be. They should have some justice, and that is. And in my mind, this is a very symbolic thing, this video, because it was not unique. When we released the Iraq war logs in October 2010, there were so many incidents that were similar to this one. And actually, the field report about the Collateral Murder incident on July 12, 2007 was only 8 or 10 lines long. It was, in the general scheme of things, very insignificant in Iraq.
And Christian,
but it was the cold-blooded killing, often with reference to some legal aspects, rules of engagement. I can tell you about what the Iraq war documents gave us as well. It was an incident where people were surrendering to a helicopter. They might have been insurgents, but they had thrown away their weapons. And the crew of the Apache gunship, the helicopter, basically radioed back to headquarters and said, "What shall we do?" And the headquarters said, we'll call up the lawyers. And they came back to the crew and said, we have talked to the lawyers, and the lawyer said that technically you cannot surrender to an aircraft, so smoke them. That was what happened in the Iraq war. And it was the same thing happened with the Collateral Murder video incident. It was a superficial investigation done at the time, and it was a total brush over. All was within the laws of war and rules of engagement. It is an extremely brutal picture that all the information that we have revealed about the Iraq war has brought to light. And it's a terrible chapter and a dark one in our history. Information that we revealed had an effect of actually bringing the war to an end. If you look back, there was a plan to keep soldiers in Iraq, U.S. soldiers, for far longer than actually happened. And it was because the information that came out in the diplomatic cables concerning the Iraq war outraged the Iraqi population, evidence of war crime. So the al-Maliki government could not give immunity to the U.S. soldier, and Obama decided to pull out all the troops far earlier than expected. Doing the work that he has been doing throughout all this time that he has been under house arrest or in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, still doing his work. He has a good internet connection, and we are continuing our work. And we have actually a press conference on Monday in Washington, D.C. to announce a new project. And this is all, of course, under the direction of Julian Assange. We hope that his situation will change and he can walk free, hopefully very soon. Of course, on the already changed the world. I think it has changed the perspective people have on information sharing and the power that information can have in making historical changes. And I think that we have contributed to a very, very important changes. It is nobody argues against the fact that the diplomatic cable release that started towards the end of the year 2010 did have a catalytic effect on the Arab Spring and the tremendous changes we have seen in that region. And there are so many stories that have come out that have changed our views on the world and have changed history.